turn that frown upside down with Paul Perillo. Or are we? Before we get going, hi, Paul. How you doing?
No, you are. We are.
Real quick, can I just correct something? I've always said this. Simmons sort of sparked my ire there on Lombardi. Like Lombardi ended in some sort, like he's equating how Lombardi finished to how Belichick, the laughing stock, the utter embarrassment and wall-to-wall losing and embarrassing behavior of Bill Belichick in these last 5 years to somehow Vince Lombardi. I've always said Vince Lombardi went to the Redskins and immediately turned him into an 8-8 team, and a couple of years later they were in the Super Bowl. I'm as usual a little off. Oh no, they were 7-5-2. Their first winning record in 11 years. Sorry, 12 years. So the Washington former Redskins, perennial loser for a decade plus, over a decade, every single year a losing record. He goes there immediately, turns them into a winner, 7-5-2. 3 years later, they're in the Super Bowl, losing to the perfect Dolphins. That's the same as what Bill Belichick is doing?
Definitely not.
And if you choose to remember that about Lombardi, you do, because I think it enhances his legacy. It doesn't diminish his legacy, which is what Bill Belichick's in the process of doing. So, sorry, I just want to scratch that itch.
I think that's an itch worth scratching. I totally agree with you. There are a lot of those examples that would be better than that one. Like Willie Mazz. How many times you hear people say falling down in the World Series for the New York Mets. But these kinds of things that people are talking about with Belichick, they're ignoring the off-field comedy routine that has taken place in Chapel Hill. I think they're just totally glossing over that. This is about far more than losing games as a coach.
Okay. Either way, Paul, back to the matter at hand.
Yeah.
Are you closer to the overwhelming optimism and, frankly, bandwagon jumping that the Patriots have now experienced and are enjoying here in Boston and elsewhere, or closer to Dan Lifshatz and the bucket of cold water, the nut-shriveling bucket of cold water from Dan Lifshatz? Which end of the spectrum are you closer to?
Probably closer to the over-the-top optimism. It's boring that I'm in the middle, and I know that doesn't really play well with you two, but that's okay. Dan Lifshatz has that, like I just said to you guys as I came in, that was a tour de force. And
there's more.
And I know you might heard. I was listening to some of the clips because you had them included in the email today. I got a lot of enjoyment out of them, and I said to you, he's out of his mind, Dan, and I say that with all the peace and love. I don't know Dan very well. I've met him a time or two, but he's not entirely wrong. There's some truth to some. I thought he was a little bit, reactionary. I know talk radio, over the top a little with his take, but I understand what he's talking about. Just specifically the Baltimore Ravens at 1-5. Everybody's completely decided this is over. They're done. I don't believe that. I think that the Ravens are a talented enough team that I could see if they can get Lamar Jackson back on the field, they're talented enough to rattle off 6-8 wins in a row. I'm not telling you they're going to do it. 1-5 might be too big of a hole, but I don't think there's very many people around the NFL that would be surprised if the Ravens are in playoff contention come December. And that's like when you play them. Doesn't matter what they're doing now. You're going to play them. They might have some wins under their belt. I would even, to a lesser extent, say the second half of that Bengals game against the Packers, tough place to play against a good, solid opponent.
They outplayed us.
That's as good as the Bengals have looked since Burrow went down.
With Joe Flacco, they were the better team in the second half.
So I'm not putting those games in the win column. And I think that was Dan's point is let's just kind of hold on and let things unfold.
And is Joe Burrow going to be back?
Probably not, but he could. They said 3 months. And they said 3 months at a minimum. And if they don't start winning games, I don't see why you would put him back.
How about the premise that they don't really do anything well other than Drake May?
So this is where I'm at in terms of not going over the top with the positivity. If we're just going to talk about Drake May, then pants are off. It's been unbelievable to see how much better he's gotten just since the start of the season. But I think that the game Sunday was his best game. I think what he did against Buffalo was just pure athletic ability and God-given talent. What he did against New Orleans was play football, play quarterback at an exceptionally high level. But the rest of the team, to your point, they haven't been able to run the ball. Their numbers defensively are sort of perplexing. They only allow 20 points a game, and that's a top 10 defense.
It is. It's ninth best in the league.
Almost every other metric in the passing game, they're bottom 5. I think the defensive DVOA, there's something like 26.
Defensive passer rating.
The whole passer rating thing that we've been told for years and years is the key metric. They're terrible. Now, they've been good stopping the run. They've been one of the better, I think they might be the best run-stopping unit in football. But allowing the amount of completions they allow on a weekly basis should translate to more than 20 points allowed. They haven't really been good in the red zone until this week. They were really good in the red zone against New Orleans. So it is kind of the Drake May show. I mean, Stephon Diggs certainly was there to lend a huge hand in Buffalo, and I thought Booty made some huge plays for them in this past game. But this has all been about Drake May. Now, if he's as good as we think he is and is developing into, that would be fine. There's a lot of teams that are about the quarterback.
I mean, that's what the Bills are, especially looking at them right now. Like, if you have a guy that's special enough, that's good enough in today's NFL.
Yeah, look, there are things, like Paul, I think Dan went a little far on, that's the only thing they do well. He said interior run, but they stopped the run. They haven't given up a lot of points. Their special teams are pretty good. I mean, I don't know if I'd call them great yet, but they're pretty good.
Return game's pretty good.
Yeah.
They've been a little inconsistent, but they have three huge plays in the return game, 2 punts and a kick.
Their coverage teams overall have been pretty good. And I would say their pass blocking is decent. Their receivers are better than people thought. So, that all relates to the pass game, and maybe that's May, but I think Diggs has looked terrific, and Booty's looked good pretty much all year. I mean, he's been pretty consistent every week.
Their receivers have been good, and I was sort of skeptical of the group itself, but they have been good. I agree with you, and this is one of those things where people say, if May is the guy, this receiving core should be good enough for him to work with. And we've seen that. I think he's made them look a little bit better. But Booty's been excellent. I agree with you, Mazz. Every time they ask him to do something, he does it. And they haven't all been easy plays. He's made some really tough catches in tight coverage. And the last 2 weeks, getting out of bounds, staying in bounds in situations.
He did it a couple times in this game.
Yeah, he did. He did do it twice in this past game, and the one against Buffalo, I pointed out to you late last week, I think was a very sneaky, underrated play in that last drive. So they're getting a lot of contributions from a lot of people, but it's been largely about May, and my concern there would be what happens when teams start to adjust. Does he adjust to the adjustments? And, there's no way of knowing that as we talk about it today, but they've seen a lot of single high coverage, single high coverage with a lot of extra guys in the box. Maybe teams start to say, well, we don't really care about stopping the run anymore. We got to make sure this kid doesn't kill us, because he's been killing us the last couple of weeks. And I don't know if I were an opposing defense, I'd let anybody run, because I think that's, an easy way to keep the point total down. And for all of the stuff that Drake May in the passing game have done, it was 23 points against Buffalo, 25 points this week. That, should be enough to be in the game if you're anybody else. And, New Orleans was in the game. They had every opportunity to win. These last 2 games could have gone either way.
I do wonder also, Mike, how it would all look if Diggs weren't as good as he's been. Like, that's huge.
Okay, so, he's not going to be?
What do you mean?
Well, what's it if he is as good as he's looked?
No. I'm just saying that it's not all May. In other words,
I see.
If Diggs weren't here, would May look as good? And I don't think he would. I just think Diggs has become that absolute go-to guy on 3rd and 8, 4th and 4.
Yep.
Like, he's the guy.
No, Diggs and Hollins has, I think, been better than whatever their 4th guy was last year.
Definitely.
Whoever that was.
Definitely.
And Booty's definitely gotten better. So he's working with a little bit more, there's no doubt. Paul, finally, before we hit the break, and your calls, there's open lines if you want them at 617-779-0985. Are you among those who think they have to get the running game going?
I mean, I think that you need some semblance of a running game. I'm lockstep with you in this one. It's one of the few things that I don't argue with you about. I'm not a huge running game guy, but this is pretty bad. Like I've always said, I need you to get touchdowns when we're first and goal. I need to be able to run the ball in, and I need a semblance of a 4-minute offense. I need, when the other team knows we're going to run, I want to line up and run it and be able to get 3 runs for a first down, or at least put myself in a situation where that 3rd down is I can do what I want. They haven't been able to do that. They haven't been able to run the ball at all, and that's a hard way to play. when you're completely one-dimensional like that. The end of these games, they've had to throw the last couple of weeks to move the chains. That's a tough way to play all the time. Sooner or later, you're going to make a mistake doing that. So I think they have to run the ball better than this.